Assalamu alaikum students. Today we are going to discuss vitamin B9 or folate, which is also known as folic acid. Chemically, this folate or folic acid is stearoyl glutamic acid. It occurs in three forms according to how many glutamates are attached to it. Okay, the pyridine complex has this glutamic acid residues that are attached to it. So these three compounds differ only in the number of glutamic acids, like monoglutamate, triglutamate, heptaglutamate. The enzyme conjugases these these liberate the glutamic acids, and supposedly the digestion starts from heptaglutamate. They are changed to monoglutamate by the enzyme conjugases. The biologically active form of folic acid is tetrahydrofolate. Okay, tetrahydrofolate. Because of their lability, these occur naturally only in small quantities, being present mainly in the form of N-formyl or N5-methyl derivatives. Okay, we'll see the derivative forms. Okay, what happens is, step 1 is folic acid. Dihydrofolate reductase enzyme converts this folic acid to dihydrofolate. Okay, dihydrofolate. The reductase is dihydrofolate reductase. Okay, now vitamin C acts as a cofactor. NADP is used converting into NADP. Second step, this dihydrofolate is converted to tetrahydrofolate by the enzyme dihydrofolate reductase. Okay, both of them are dihydrofolate reductases. Okay, so dihydrofolate reductase enzyme converts this dihydrofolate to tetrahydrofolate. The cofactor is vitamin C, and NADPH and NADP. The same mechanisms are occurring. Okay, so this folic acid is converted into tetrahydrofolate in 2 steps. Dietary sources, it's widely distributed in nature, being present in many animals and plant tissues and in microorganisms. It is particularly abundant in liver, yeast, kidney, and green leafy vegetables like spinach and cauliflower. Fish and wheat are also have fair amount of folic acid in them. The recommended dietary allowance, in adults it is 400 to 500 microgram daily. In infants it is 50 microgram. In children it is 100 to 300 microgram. And the requirement increases in pregnancy and lactation. Pregnant women, it is 800 microgram the RDA, and in lactating women it is 600 microgram. So the intestinal absorption takes place in the jejunum. These polyglutamates like heptaglutamate and all are ingested in diet and are converted to monoglutamates, and dihydrofolates are reduced to tetrahydrofolates by folate reductase enzyme. Okay, tetrahydrofolates are then converted to their derivatives, which are methyl tetrahydrofolates, which enter the portal blood and then carried to the liver. Once these polyglutamates are converted into monoglutamates, then it is converted into tetrahydrofolates. These tetrahydrofolates are then converted to the methyl form, which enter the portal blood and then carried to the liver. They are transported in blood as methyl tetrahydrofolate bound to a specific protein. So storage, about 70 milligram in the whole body, of which about 1/3 is in the liver. Red blood cells, folate is incorporated in the red blood cells during erythropoiesis, when the process of making of these red blood cells is occurring in the bone marrow. Okay, the metabolic role of folate. 1. Carbon metabolism. So this means that this folate is involved in the transfer and utilization of 1 carbon moiety. That means it is when it is attached to a 1 carbon containing compound, for example methyl, for example formyl, or formate or form amino group or hydroxymethyl. These all are one carbon containing compounds. So if it is attached to methyl, it becomes methyl tetrahydrofolate. When it becomes formyl tetrahydrofolate or formate tetrahydrofolate, this one carbon moiety can be derived from several sources and can be utilized to form several compounds by which it does so many important functions. I'll show you a diagram and then you'll be clear about it. So one carbon metabolism means this tetrahydrofolate has this ability to utilize a compound, one carbon compound, and then perform different functions. Now look over here. See, you took a diet, it had folic acid. Okay. Now this folic acid is changed to or reduced to dihydrofolic acid or dihydrofolate, okay, by enzyme dihydrofolate reductase. Okay. Now this dihydrofolate folate or folic acid is then converted into tetrahydrofolate or tetrahydrofolic acid by the same enzyme dihydrofolate reductase. Okay. Once this tetrahydrofolate is made, it has this ability to take one carbon moieties. That means if it takes a formyl group, it becomes a N10 formyl tetrahydrofolate. If it takes a methylene group, it becomes N5 N10 methylene tetrahydrofolate. Takes a methyl group, it becomes N5 methyl tetrahydrofolate. So these are the three very important derivatives: N10 formyl, N5 N10 methylene, and N5 methyl tetrahydrofolate. Now what is the function? N10 formyl tetrahydrofolate are important in purine synthesis. You know you need purine for the DNA and the ability to grow and divide for the cells. Then TMP synthesis, okay, thymidine monophosphate synthesis. Then serine synthesis from glycine, you need this N5 N10 methylene tetrahydrofolate for that also. Then N5 methyl tetrahydrofolate, what it does is methionine synthesis from homocysteine. So homocysteine is converted into methionine with the help of N5 methyl tetrahydrofolate. So you need to know the functions of all these three: formyl, methylene and methyl. Okay. Formyl is purine synthesis, N5 N10 is TMP synthesis and serine synthesis, and N5 methyl tetrahydrofolate is methionine synthesis. So you need to know this diagram very well. Okay. Then you can see this methotrexate, which can inhibit dihydrofolate reductase or here in these instances. Okay. So MTX or methotrexate is an anti-cancer drug. Okay. So when there is cancer therapy going on, if you give methotrexate, it goes and what it does is it inhibits the dihydrofolate reductase enzyme, and thus folic acid cannot be converted into these forms, and thus purine synthesis, TMP synthesis cannot occur. Thus DNA doesn't know how to divide, the cancer cells start dying. Okay. So MTX acts as a methotrexate, acts as an anti-cancer drug. Okay. It is also used in rheumatoid arthritis. Okay. Okay. Now here there's one more role of dihydrofolate reductase. How this is happening, how the DNA cannot be completely organized, and how it doesn't know how to divide, and how in the cancer drugs, what happens is DUMP, okay, deoxyuridine monophosphate, is to be converted into DTMP, okay, that by the enzyme thymidylate synthase. Okay. So if these two are anti-cancer drugs, 5-fluorouracil also, MTX also. Okay. Now it needs this conversion, needs thymidylate synthase, and also it needs this dihydrofolate reductase, which is gonna convert this dihydrofolate into tetrahydrofolate, from where this whole process is gonna take place. Okay. So if you inhibit this enzyme, or if you inhibit dihydrofolate reductase by MTX, this process is not going to take place, and ultimately your cancer cells will start dying. Okay. Now there are main functions of vitamin folic acid, and One is that I already told you that methionine, okay, here homocysteine is converted into methionine with the help of folic acid and B12. Okay. So, if there is a deficiency of folic acid or if there is a deficiency of B12, this process cannot take place. In B12, vitamin B12, we will be studying about the folate trap. Okay. Once you know that what the role of vitamin B12 is in this process, you will understand that folate trap also. So, here for conversion of homocysteine to methionine, we studied in the chart that N5-methyl tetrahydrofolate is needed, which gives its methyl N5-methyl group to homocysteine, and this homocysteine is thus converted into methionine by using methionine synthase, and tetrahydrofolate comes here. Okay, and B12 is necessary, methylcobalamin is necessary also for this process. Okay. So, one more thing of folic acid is there is also another what do you say, reaction where B12 is working as a coenzyme, but we will be discussing that in B12. Okay. Now, what we were talking about is what happens in human beings. Okay. This is what happens in the bacteria. You know, when we get sick, we know there are germs, there are bacteria which are causing us these symptoms. Okay. So, you give antibiotics. You know what antibiotics do? Antibiotics go and they inhibit the enzymes that convert this folic acid into the bacteria's folic acid. Okay. The bacteria's folic acid to tetrahydrofolic acid, they are inhibiting this process so that these purines, thymine, methionine and DNA, RNA are not made and the bacteria start dying. So, these antibiotics like sulfonamides, trimethoprim and all, they come and they inhibit the enzymes which are used in the process of converting this pyridine or PABA into the tetrahydrofolic acid. Look over here, PABA plus pyridine is going to give you dihydrotearic acid. Then dihydrotearic acid is converted into dihydrofolic acid, and dihydrofolic acid by dihydrofolate reductase enzyme is converted into tetrahydrofolic acid. So, if you give sulfonamides, this will convert, this will inhibit dihydrotearate synthase, and thus there will be no synthesis of dihydrotearic acid. Okay. So, the germs will start dying, bacteria will start dying. But if this is not working, that means the bacteria have surpassed this, what will happen? You will give another type of antibiotics, trimethoprim or pyrimethamine, anything which will inhibit dihydrofolate reductase enzyme. Thus, if the germ has made dihydrofolic acid, it will get inhibited here. There will be no formation of tetrahydrofolic acid, thus no formation of N5, N10 methylenes, no formation of purine, no formation of DNA, RNA, thymidine or DNA, no formation of methionine or protein. Thus, the germs or bacteria are killed. Okay. I already told you that it plays a role in 1-carbon metabolism for the synthesis of several compounds, and folic acid deficiency is probably the most common vitamin deficiency in United States, particularly among pregnant women and alcoholics. Okay, because absorption is also hindered by this alcohol. Leafy dark green vegetables are a good source of folic acid. Okay, now anemia is a condition in which the blood has a lower than normal concentration of Hb. So, thus it has this reduced ability to transport oxygen. If you have inadequate serum levels of folate, this inadequate serum levels of folate can be caused by different things, like an increased demand in pregnancy, lactation, when you are not giving folic acid from exterior, poor absorption, like if you have this small intestine pathology, alcoholism or treatment with other drugs which are hindering its absorption, this will cause a deficiency. If you are in a fat diet, if you are doing a diet which has this tea and toast diet, right, you know, when you are dieting, you want to lose weight, sometimes you follow a diet regime which gives you one or two types of food that you have to keep on eating, like banana and milk and all. So there is a tea and toast diet. If you take tea and toast diet, you won't get folic acid from anywhere from tea or toast. Okay, so there could be a deficiency of folic acid because of this. Now, megaloblastic anemia caused by diminished synthesis of purines and TMP, which leads to an inability of cells to make DNA and therefore an inability to divide. So if you don't have folic acid, okay, what will happen? You have less folic acid, or you have folic acid which is not being absorbed rightly. Your DNA is not signaled properly. Your DNA starts growing. Okay, the DNA does not have the signal when to divide. It keeps on growing, and once it keeps on growing, it doesn't know when to divide. It becomes huge, and there are megaloblasts in the peripheral smear. When you see the blood smear under the microscope, there are big blast cells. Okay, so that is what is called as megaloblastic anemia. Okay, so deficiency causes macrocytic type of anemia. That is, I already told you, the bone marrow will show arrested development of all the elements like erythroid, myeloid and thrombocytes that make this platelets, RBCs and all. Megaloblasts accumulate at the expense of more mature cells because they don't know when to divide, and thus you will have this megaloblastic anemia. Okay. If there is folic acid deficiency in a pregnant woman, there might be neural tube defects in the fetus. Okay, the two types of neural tube defects in the fetus could be spina bifida and anencephaly. These are the most common neural tube defects. Okay, and every pregnant woman is told to take folic acid in the initial months of pregnancy. Actually, in United States and all, they say every woman of childbearing age should take folic acid, or when they have started planning only that they want to plan a baby, they should start taking folic acid. But if you don't take this folic acid, there is a risk of having a pregnancy which is affected by neural tube defects. Okay, now I'll show you spina bifida. Okay, it is a birth defect that occurs when the spine and spinal cord don't form properly. It's a type of neural tube defect, and the neural tube is the structure in a developing embryo that eventually becomes the baby's brain, spinal cord and the tissues that enclose them. Look over here. See, these are dura mater and meninges and all, they are protruded out. Okay, so this is spina bifida. Anencephaly is the other neural tube defect. Look over here. This is an anencephalic child. Look over here. So anencephaly is the absence of a major portion of the brain, skull and scalp that occurs during embryonic development. It is a cephalic disorder that results from a neural tube defect that occurs when the rostral or head end of the neural tube fails to close, usually between the 23rd and 26th day following conception. So you'll be studying this in embryo. So this is anencephaly, the absence of major portion of the brain, skull and scalp. Okay, and this is also anencephaly, and this is the normal marrow, and this is the megaloblastic marrow showing big blast cells. Okay, so the folic acid deficiency causes the neural tube defects, which are anencephaly and spina bifida. So a pregnant lady should take folic acid irregularly, especially in the first trimester. Okay. A 32-year-old woman presents to your neurology clinic for follow-up of a newly diagnosed seizure disorder. She has been taking phenytoin for the last 6 months, which has been quite effective in controlling her seizures. That fits. During the appointment, she tells you that she has been feeling more tired than usual and that she has recently developed some watery diarrhea. On physical examination, you notice that she is rather pale, has a smooth red tongue, is tachycardic. When laboratory test reveals a megaloblastic anemia, you suspect that the phenytoin is responsible for the nutritional deficiency that is causing her symptoms. So phenytoin is a drug which hinders the absorption of folic acid. So she was put on phenytoin, and she's having these fits, and then she has this she's tachycardic, she's pale, she's having this megaloblastic anemia, and thus this means that the phenytoin is not letting the folic acid present in her diet to be absorbed, and thus she's developing folic acid deficiency. This is all for folic acid. We'll be discussing the next vitamin in the next lecture, and whenever we discuss vitamin B12, we'll see how they are correlated at some points. That's all for today. Thank you very much.